Miss Sandell, you've had a lot of experience working to prevent climate change, including developing the former state Labor government's climate plan, for example. What climate policies will you attempt to implement if elected?
Well, the great thing about this seat here in Melbourne in this election is that because Tony Abbott is doing so very little at a federal level, we actually have the opportunity here for the state government to step up and actually do a lot more on climate change. So some of the things that the Greens have announced are we'd really love a Victorian renewable energy target because Abbott is really trying to rip up or significantly weaken the renewable energy target, but also other policies like protecting our forests that are just 1.5 hours from Melbourne, which are incredibly dense carbon stores, encouraging active and public transport rather than more roads, which just put polluting cars on the road, and also shutting down our most polluting power stations. We know that our three most polluting power stations are some of the most polluting in the whole world. And because of the uptake of renewables, we've got a lot more energy in the grid than we actually need. So we could shut down some of those really dirty power stations like Hazelwood and Anglesea, which are harming people's health and also harming the climate. But we're yet to see commitments on those things from either Labor or the Liberal Party.
On your website, you say you want to stand up to what you call Tony Abbott's destructive agenda and Abbott's extreme plans. Are you too focused on federal issues?
No, so there is a lot that the state government can do here to create a fairer society, a cleaner economy, and also a more livable Melbourne. We're seeing Abbott rip up the social contract that Australia was built on. We want to live in a fair, equitable society. That's a value that Australians hold really dear to their hearts. Abbott's trying to destroy that, but here in Melbourne, if we elect a Green, we can actually do things at a state level to help prevent people from falling through the cracks and create a fairer society. So things like investing in our TAFE system so everyone can actually get a good education, investing more in our hospitals. We've announced a bunch of policies to invest both in the Royal Women's and Royal Children's hospitals to bring down waiting lists, and things like investing in our public housing. There's a huge waiting list, 30,000 people on the waiting list for public housing. Neither Labor nor Liberal have done anything to help shorten that waiting list, and they're actually trying to sell off a bunch of our public housing assets.
And having worked as a policy advisor for John Brumby, why have you chosen to run for the Greens and not Labor?
I had a few experiences there that really made me very disappointed in the Labor Party in particular. Instances where policies and reports were changed under pressure from the coal industry, a situation where I helped to write a forestry policy and it came back with red pen all over it. It was completely rewritten to what the forestry industry wanted, with complete disregard to what the science was actually telling us about why we needed to protect our forests and take action on climate change. So I went in there with the best of intentions, but realised that the Labor Party actually cared more about their political future than our actual future. So I'm proud to be with the Greens because I think we're a party that actually stands up for what matters.
The Greens oppose building the East-West link. What do you propose as an alternative solution?
Labor, in their last term of government, spent $7 billion on roads and only $300 million on public transport. We do not need a polluting East-West toll road. Instead, we have a plan for better public transport. It includes things like building Doncaster rails so that we can get those cars off the Eastern Freeway and make it easy for people to come into work in the city. Things like buying more trams, creating new tram routes, creating a better bus system that actually connects up with our trains and tram routes, and investing in public transport that people actually want rather than a toll road. And it's really disappointing that Napthine has signed the contracts for the toll road before taking it to an election, and the Labor Party has really put off their decision, relying on a court case after the election to determine whether they'll build it or not. So the Greens are the only party who have always stood strong against the East-West toll road.
If you were to win Melbourne, there's a strong chance you would hold the balance of power. Would you form a coalition with Labor? What would be your terms?
Well, we would make sure that the East-West toll road is not built. That's our number one priority, and that money is invested in public transport instead. We will not form government with any party who seeks to build the East-West toll road. But we don't just want to support a Labor government who's going to implement Liberal policies like the East-West toll road, like ripping up action on climate change. So we'd put conditions on a Labor government that says you need to put more money into public transport, not roads. You need to do things to address climate change, like a Victorian renewable energy target.
Without Liberal preferences, is there a chance that you can win the seat of Melbourne?
Yes, Adam Ban just last year had a 7% swing towards him. Without Liberal preferences, he was able to win the seat of Melbourne in his own right. We know that Labor and Liberals will probably team up to try and keep the Greens out here in Melbourne, But only 2 years ago, there was a by-election and the Greens only lost by 400 votes. So there's very few votes in it. We know that Adam Bandt has been a really strong local member, and I'd hope that we could do that at a state election, have a strong independent Green voice here in Parliament so that we can actually get on with addressing some of the big challenges, keep Melbourne a livable place to be.
Thanks for speaking with us, Ellen Sandell, Greens candidate for Melbourne.